Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at the great anthology series A1. This was supposed to be the last issue, number 6. It was planned as a 6-issue miniseries the whole time, but apparently they had too much stuff for the last issue, so they split it up into A16A and A16B. So they're two separate comics. So today we're going to look at A16A, and next time we'll check out 6B. Start off with a really nice Jamie Hewlett cover of Tank Girl. This is the new look of Tank Girl. This is what Tank Girl looked like, all of her first few years that the world grew to know and love. But they were trying some new look for her. I just love this blue. It's really nice. But also really nice cartooning. The Skeleton Crew page of creators is very sparse this time. Usually it has all these thank yous and shout outs. But I think because someone they knew died, it says for Robert. But then Indicia is just as funny as always. Pretty clever. We got the contents page, and we start off with this Tank Girl story. She's fucking great. That's the actual name of the story. And this one is just solo Jamie Hewlett story. He wrote and drew it. Alan Martin, I guess, took a break. And, man, I really like Jamie Hewlett's cartooning. He's just so fun. All these crazy designs he does. Look at all these crazy characters. Really neat. So the narrator of the story is this mad scientist guy. And he's been trying to build the perfect woman, like a Franken chick. And he's almost finished, except he needs a beautiful head. He has to find a woman who's beautiful, because he wants this Franken chick to be perfect. He's got this little Igor-type assistant named Scotty, who's this kind of just a pretty wretched-looking dude. And the scientist is just totally cruel to him and just treats him like dirt. I only have, those first few Tank Girl comics that were in Deadline. And so basically about, 3 or 4 strips I have of Tank Girl. But I gotta say, I'm not a big fan. I think that's why I never picked any up. It just seems like it's very, that 90s, in your face, extreme kind of humor, where Tank Girl's basically a big dick. For example, the Scotty guy, he's totally a sweet soul. He looks funny. He's not very attractive. And when Tank Girl meets him, she just insults him, his physical appearance. But she's the cool hero, oh, she's sassy and brassy. But she's really just a dick. So I don't know, I'm just not thrilled with a lot of the humor in this, but there are some things I like. This is not boring. It's pretty fun to read. So just like an old Universal horror movie, Tank Girl and her kangaroo boyfriend show up at this castle on a dark and stormy night. It's the mad scientist castle. They knock on the door. Scotty answers, and Tank Girl starts insulting him. And basically, this is kismet, because the mad scientist was looking for a beautiful woman. I guess in this place, this country where he lives, there's just not very beautiful women. So he kind of gave up hope. So just like in a Universal horror movie, he shows her her chambers, and she takes a bath, and then he invites her to this sumptuous meal. And I guess the plan is that he ordered Scotty to put drugs in her food. And we see Tank Girl pass out in the middle of dinner. And then he takes her to his laboratory, and it looks like he's about to put her head on this body. He's got the saw all ready to go. And then Scotty says, "No, master, you can't do it." And Scotty says, "I love you, master. I've loved you for years. Why don't you love me? Don't finish your creation. Just be with me instead." And the doctor is so furious with, I guess, his effrontery that he chops his head off. with his surgical instrument. And then he's standing over Scotty's corpse, and then he passes out. And later on, Tanker wakes up, and it turns out that Scotty gave the drug food to the mad scientist, his master. That's why he passed out. Tank Girl actually just fell asleep because she was so bored. I just thought was kind of funny. She was just bored by the mad scientist. So she wasn't drugged at all. So she kind of figures out the whole situation. And her kangaroo boyfriend, I guess she tied up earlier. I guess some kinky thing. But then she just ditched him. So he finally freed himself. And he's like, whoa, what the hell have you been up to down here? And then they walk off into the rain. And then later on, we see the mad scientist waking up. And he sees his Franken woman, the body of her. She just gets out of the shower, and she's drying her hair with this towel over her face. And she, when the towel is removed, it's Scotty's head. Tank Girl put Scotty's head on the Frankenstein lady body. So I don't know. Maybe they'll have a nice life together. Just fun to look at. Here's a comic attraction for the 6B issue. Looks very fun. So his next story is called Rescue, and it's pretty well written, and the reason why is because it's written by Archie Goodwin. That's what I love about A1. They obviously at the time had all these hot shit superstar artists, current artists like Bill Sienkiewicz and, Brian Bolland. But they also seem to know their comics history and, recruited one of the great writers in comics history, Archie Goodwin, to write this story. It's drawn by Disraeli. And it's a pretty damn interesting story. This totally could be in some old Warren comic. Well, it's not very horrific. I mean, it is, but there's no supernatural elements. So basically, there's this guy named Cole. He's kind of this mysterious character, kind of like a deprogrammer. And he's kind of rounded up these three parents, these three guys. Loomis, a timid bank manager. Gordon Shaw, kind of an asshole sales executive. And our narrator, Ed Hill, a retired police officer. And what they have in common is all of their children have been brainwashed by a cult. And Cole basically said, guys, I'm ex-military. I can, let's free them. I got the know-how. I'll help you get your kids back. So they're casing out the joint. It's, of course, like this big commune, big farm. And we see a little flashback, a little history of how the cult leader started his religion and, just became very corrupt. And then Ed Hill starts thinking about, his daughter and reminiscing about how, his wife left him. He had to raise his daughter by himself. He wasn't really there much. He was always working. So she grew up without much affection and without guidance. And, those are the people that cults love to recruit. So when she leaves home a few years later, she ends up being part of this cult. And then soon after that, on the job, he was stabbed by this junkie woman. And he shot her. He killed her. And it really fucked him up. So basically, he couldn't really work anymore. After he was a changed man. So pretty much like a few months later, they gave him a forced retirement. He just couldn't do his job. And then Barney Cole approached him. This Cole guy seems to have approached these guys. They didn't go looking for him. He approached them and says, hey, your kid's in this cult. Let me help you out. So they're sneaking onto the commune, and the cult members show up with little crossbows. They kill Loomis, and a big melee breaks out. The cult members are pretty fanatical. They're just, screaming about their beloved leader and, And throughout all the captions, just really good, solid writing. Archie Goodwin is just pretty much like a a fun, no, not fun. It's kind of actually a depressing action story, but it's, he adds just enough of like character development for all the characters where you give a shit. In like 8 pages, you totally care about this retired cop. So they're kind of going through these bunkers and nobody's around. Except for a few passed out like drug addicts. He sees the bulletin board and he sees a picture of the cult leader. His name's Jared Prophet. His eyes are burning, almost hypnotic. But then he sees on the bulletin board that all the cult members were going to meet in this barn. And it looks like they got Shaw, that asshole sales executive. I'd even mention he kind of went nuts and started just shooting any of the cult members he saw. I mean, he could have shot his own kid. He doesn't seem to even really care about his kid. He's more angry that the cult leader, Jared Prophet, fleeced him of his money through his daughter. That's all he seems angry about. So Hill goes into this barn. They're ripping Shaw to shreds, and he closes the door just in time, basically trapping them in the barn. Cole shows up, and he says, "Yeah, all the exits are sealed. Let's get to the main mansion and take down Prophet." There's a fire breaks out in the barn, and he says, "We gotta let them go. They're gonna fry up in there." And Cole's like, "They're gonna rip us to shreds. That's their problem." And so they enter the mansion. They infiltrate it. The cop still got some good moves. Takes out all the guards. And when he gets up to the master bedroom, he sees his daughter. She's a total junkie with tracks on her arms. And when he looks at her face, he sees the face of that woman who stabbed him, the junkie. And then Cole comes up behind him and he says, "Look at her. Stinking junkie, strung out, drug-addicted little slut. Couldn't you just kill her for it? Couldn't you?" And the cop actually is like looking into his burning, hypnotic eyes. It's he almost is thinking about shooting his daughter, but then he realizes, I know those eyes from the bulletin board. This is Jared Prophet. Shaved his head, shaved off his big beard, and he shoots him. And Prophet explains himself. He basically killed Cole. There was a guy named Cole, a real deprogrammer. So he killed him while he was infiltrating the compound, used his ID to recruit you and the others. Basically, his religion's at a dead end. He calls it a flock of losers, society's dregs. He decided to make them martyrs instead. He was basically just planning on starting over. He wanted to kill off his old flock and start over. And so, he could totally finish him off and shoot him in the head, but he basically is a good guy, and he just grabs his daughter and he takes her home. This next one is The Competition, and oh man, guys, this art is so nice. I know I've creamed all over Hilary Barta's artwork before, but this is so nice. Doug Rice on the writing, and but man, look at just how gorgeous every panel is in this. This is actually a pretty funny story. This guy opens a bar across the street from a very popular bar that all the total scumbags love to drink their beer at. And he can't get any of them to come over to his place. So he does all of these schemes, and plans. It's also this isn't necessarily our world. Some of them are just like monsters and mutants, but everyone just accepts it. It's just like this bar, the clientele are just all kinds of freaks and weirdos. So he offers a free buffet, and all of the patrons of the other bar run over and they eat him out of house and home. And none of them even buy a drink. And they just run across the street and buy their drinks there after eating all this food. Just every panel's beautiful. I love these, the way he does the background buildings here with that like craft tint or whatever that is to give it the layered effect. I mean, so much craft in his artwork. He's just like one of those great old-time cartoonists, you know? How much work he puts in every panel. But also his just caricatures are just brilliant. There they are all running back to the bar. I love these panels. And then he offers first drink free. And they actually all come over, have a free drink, and then run back to their old bar. But then he offers exotic dancers. And this seems to work. All the guys run over there, all these scumbags. And, oh my God, I love this. The girls come out, these strippers. They're just monstrous. This woman looks like a shriveled up mummy lady. And this one, I don't know what she looks like. She's like Fred Flintstone's niece or something. It's just so repulsive. But of course, these guys love them. They're just going gaga and drooling. And when the bartender says, "Did I mention the 3-drink minimum?" the whole place erupts. A riot breaks out. This panel is just amazing. All of these characters, all interestingly designed. It's just great stuff. And basically they're all done fighting. They basically torched his bar. It's on fire. And the poor bar owner walks across the street to the other bar and says, "I need a drink." Oh, it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. This one, not so much. This is called The Happy Angel of Death by Martin Hand. I think I might have seen him in some other UK anthologies, but I can't remember. I actually kind of like this cute little art style where he draws these people. And, but the story's not very funny. This is Death, the Angel of Death. And she's talking about how she has all these ways of dispatching people and sending them to the other side. And most people are pretty happy in the afterlife. And they're like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm glad she killed me. But then something happens. She meets a devil dog, and he dispatches her and sends her to heaven. So it's like a big reunion. All the people that she killed over the years, she's hanging out with them, and it looks like they're pretty happy. Yeah. Some of these faces look very Tom Hart-ish. Like Hutch Owens. This next one is called Dada 331, featuring the character Harlequin Bones. It's written by Warren Ellis, and Phil Winslade draws it. I think this is pretty early in Warren Ellis's career. I think he was not the superstar American comic writer at this point, just working for 2000 AD. And I gotta say, I don't like his writing that much in this. This is, I think, what the kids would call, like, edgelord. Like, Warren Ellis is trying so hard to be, like, gritty and dirty and in-your-face extreme. And it takes place in this very dystopian, cyberpunkish city. And this character, Harlequin Bones, who's our narrator, that's them. And I can't tell if I think it's supposed to be a woman, but I can't tell. And so he's hanging out in the bar one night, and this woman comes in who looks a lot better dressed than everyone else. I'm trying to find some of the dialogue that's just a little so, like, I don't know, tough. I'm trying to be cool. Oh, by the way, Harlequin Bones is a total junkie. He's a junkie hero. He loves all kinds of drugs. So the woman approaches Harlequin and says, "Hey, do you know Lazarus Churchyard?" I think Warren Ellis, one of his early comics was called Lazarus Churchyard, so I think this takes place in that world. I've never read Lazarus Churchyard. So she, it turns out this woman's a drug dealer. And she says, "Hey, I got some Data 331 to sell." And she points to a guy across the street who's on Data 331. And it's not a very good advertisement for the drug, because it looks like he's having a psychotic episode, like he's in incredible pain. He's shitting his pants. It looks like pounds of shit. And then he snaps his own neck and kills himself. He just can't take the pain. And the woman says, don't let that sway you. Some people just can't handle it. And Harlequin says, I'm still interested. Give me an address. I'll meet you later. I got some stuff to do. Man, this Phil Winslade, it's pretty nice, pretty tight. I haven't really been talking about the art, but I'm sure you can see it. I like this panel with all these, like, just freaks and geeks. So she goes, this is my favorite part of the story. Harlequin goes to this alley, and she's going to talk to one of the war babies. This guy's name is General Patton. I guess, like, the military developed these war babies who are, like, military intelligence. Look at this guy. I love that he's using this gutted out cat as a sleeping bag. He's kind of crawled inside of this. And I guess he was drummed out of the army for his dog addiction, which is very strange. And he's pretending like he doesn't care about dogs anymore, but she gets information out of him by saying, I'll find you a pit bull if you tell me what I need to know. He's a dog addict. And so Harlequin shows up at that address, and she says, you son of a bitch, you lied to me. Data 331 isn't a drug, it's a weapon. The war baby told me. And the drug dealer woman pulls a gun. She's not really a drug dealer. She works for the military. And she's like, yep, you're right. And we're trying to test it, though. So we've been going around all these people that wouldn't be missed. Basically scumbags like you. We're using you as guinea pigs. And then I guess Harlequin Bones was in the military, and they did something to her hand. They sculpted each molecule into little tiny buzzsaws. So it's almost like she has this superpower, and she totally just shreds this woman with her crazy hand. And I do like at the very last line is, how do you get addicted to dogs anyhow? Because that's what probably every reader was wondering. This is interesting. Bob Burden of Flaming Carrot fame doing Dreams of the Taco Fiend. And it says that it's by Bob Burden and Hugo Saltine. Obviously a pseudonym, but I don't know who that is. It's dedicated to the memory of Silas, the Rarebit Boy. Obviously a reference to Winsor McCay. And obviously this is an homage to Winsor McCay, to his Dreams of a Rarebit Fiend. And the dreamer here is in his dream/nightmare. He goes to this doctor for surgery. And this guy is just completely incompetent. He's drinking schnapps during surgery. He doesn't wash his hands. So it's just like this very nerve-wracking dream. He's got all his intestines pulled out like spaghetti. And then he wakes up. And instead of rarebit, it's bad Mexican food. That's what gave him the bad dream. So I don't know if there's any more of these if he kept doing it. But it definitely has that great absurdist sense of humor that Bob Burden is pretty damn expert at. This is pretty interesting. Paris is a Ball by Serge Clerc. I think this guy's won awards for Angoulême and stuff. He's like a world-class French cartoonist. I've seen some of his stuff in heavy metal when I was younger. Very cool style, very like fun, breezy style. And but this is so weird. He loves to do this thing where he just smudges. These random smudges. It's not shading. It seems to be like random, where it's like, why is that darker there? That's not the light sources shouldn't make a shadow there. I don't get it. It's very odd that he does that. But basically this is about the Tsar who reigns over the empire of the worlds. And they're kind of vague about it, but apparently this Tsar is like the emperor of the universe. I don't know what the universe entails at this point. And he's going on a little trip to Paris. In this future, Paris is just a museum. It's a giant museum city. And he's taking along his wife, the Tsarina, and his son, the prince. And the prime minister here is left in charge. And they go to France. They go to Paris. And from their dialogue, we realize they're complete barbaric Philistines. They basically are there to raid Paris of all these great works of art. Like, oh, that would look good in our dining room, wouldn't it, honey? Like taking the Mona Lisa and shit. And so it's pretty funny, pretty humorous. Though to be honest, the humor wasn't really to my liking. I didn't laugh that much. I'm sure some people might find it funny, but it is very satirical. They have a tour guide who's kind of shocked by their behavior, but he can't say anything because they're like the all-powerful royal family. So they're just raiding this place. The prince is a little sociopathic brat. And not only are they just raiding all these treasures of French art, the prince is just like, hey, Dad, can I blast that statue? Or just these amazing centuries-old monuments. And he's just blowing them up with his laser gun just for the fun of it. Of course, the tour guide is just horrified, but he can't do anything, you know? And it gets weird when the Tsar says, oh, what's that statue? And he's got to explain, like, oh, that represents the spirit of freedom of the French people. And the Tsar doesn't even understand that concept. He's just like, what? That's ridiculous. What, the plebeians actually think they can have power? That's silly. The plebs. He brings up the Marie Antoinette story, how the plebeians, the rabble, chopped off her head, you know. And then the Tsar gets a phone call from his prime minister or secretary of state, whatever he is. And he says, there's been a revolution. You're out of a job, Tsar. The people have risen up and we've started a democracy. And the Tsar's like, what's a democracy? Someone give me a dictionary. He doesn't even know. And so basically the Tsar's family is sentenced to rebuild the monuments they destroyed. They all took to the bottle and ended up alcoholics. So it's a happy ending. But just pretty fun cartooning. Definitely different, very unique. Oh, this is a great Eddie Campbell story, Obsession. Look at the art. You know, Eddie Campbell, I love his art, but, you know, it's kind of scratchy. And look how, like, this is really just, like, kind of tight. And this is like, if you've read his Alex stories, this is very much like that. Though this is unabashed autobiography. This character is Eddie Campbell. He doesn't hide it or anything. And as you can tell by the art style, it's different too. So the narrator, Eddie Campbell's talking about collector obsession and how he's pretty immune to it. When they moved to Australia, even months after they moved in, he's got no records, he's got no books, maybe a few books, no comics. He's just totally happy having a chest, a steamer trunk with a TV on it and 2 chairs. That's all he needs. He completely immune to it. But he does have this rich friend. And he always invites him over for dinner parties. And this guy's the exact opposite. He's a total collector. And he's rich enough to collect lots of crazy stuff. He's got suits of armor, old jukeboxes, pinball machines, first editions of books, bric-a-brac, and just tons of stuff. But Eddie Campbell really likes the fact that he's got a whole comic room of rare comics. So basically, you know, he doesn't own comics, but every now and then he can flip through his friends. But the thing that really chuffs Eddie Campbell, I keep wanting to call him Alec, is that he's a wine collector who has very expensive bottles of wine that Eddie Campbell could never afford. But because he's such a collector, he's loath to drink them because then he won't have them anymore. So he always lets his wine sit too long. And by the time he opens them, it's past due. You know, the corks have broken. You know, if you're a real wine collector, that's a big thing. And it just drives Eddie crazy. he's always trying to convince him, like, hey, you got this bottle. Can't we open it up tonight? And he'd rather open up some old bottle of wine that's past due and nasty. So like Eddie Campbell's want to do, we have little historical asides about Australian wines. It's all very interesting. It's a very mundane little story, but, you know, I love those Alex strips. And Eddie Campbell's just so good at that. I find these enthralling, even though it's really just nothing really happening. And basically, Eddie makes such a fuss about this certain bottle of wine that the rich guy just gives it to him as a present. But once again, it sat too long. So here we have the last chapter of Bricktop, written by Chris Smith, art by Glenn Fabry once again. Man, Glenn Fabry's got such chops. This stuff all looks great. So like I said, guys, not too thrilled with this story. I really don't even know what the hell's going on. But here's our crew, our heroes, with that journalist guy who looks like Peter Parker. The weird religious cultists show up, who all are a bunch of freaks. One of them looks like Frankenstein. And they start chasing them. They're in this kind of amusement park. And they get on one of these kiddie rides. The Ghost Trail, and the monsters are chasing him on this little locomotive, and our heroes are throwing ice cream at them. This is very zany. It's almost like Benny Hill or something. And then we see that alien woman again, and she mind melds with the religious cultists. And actually, some of them that she mind melds with stop dead in their tracks. And all of a sudden, they're like, wait, it's wrong to try to hurt people. The bad guys grab Lucy. And it looks like they're going to kill her. But Lucy frees herself. Man, he's really good at drawing fish. He's good at drawing everything. This is all some nice looking art. And then the bad guys capture her again, and they're going to shove her face in a piranha tank. But then all of a sudden, the cops show up, and they save the day because they were about to get killed. So they're happy to be arrested by the cops, our heroes. They take them to the pokey. And then, I can't remember this woman's name. I don't know if you guys remember, like 3 episodes ago, Lucy ran into her ex-boyfriend at this party. And so this friend says, Lucy, why did you chuck Phil a very small willy? And we see a little flashback to how they met. And she was really attracted to him, but it turns out he was pretty lame in the sack. And then we flash forward. It's the prison. The prison guard says, you're not allowed to wear those in here, miss. Her sunglasses. And she takes them off. And we realize that Lucy's cross-eyed. And that's the end to this huge 6-part story. So, once again, there's a reason why I don't really dig the writing in this comic. It's just kind of inane. Like, it's just so random. And it's none of it's that interesting. I find it kind of boring. But, you know, the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. So, I'm sure some people like it. And then we have the story written by Garth Ennis and drawn by Steve Dillon, the Preacher Crew. And they'd never get drunk but stay sober, which I think is a Pogues lyric. And this is such a prototypical Garth Ennis story, even though I'm pretty sure this came out before Garth Ennis was a superstar. I think he had done some stuff for English comics. I don't think he was that big in America yet. But it's this is like a typical Garth Ennis story in the sense that Nothing really happens in this. Not that Garth Ennis always does that, but you know how Garth Ennis loves to have pages of people at a pub drinking and being clever and talking and chatting. That's all this story is. But I find Garth Ennis amazing as a writer just for the fact that I don't think I've ever not been entertained by one of his stories. Even when he's taking on some property, writing some property I don't even care about, he just is a good storyteller, and his stories always move along, and they're entertaining, and they're kind of funny. But this one, sometimes Garth Ennis does great dialogue scenes where it's just people sitting around chatting, and it's kind of fun. This one, it's not so much. It doesn't seem like the drinking is as much fun in this. Some of the friends just clam up. They're kind of bad drunks. And, some of them are even questioning, like, God, how come every time we meet, we just got to sit here and drink? Why don't we do something else for once? Of course, there's some humor. One of the guys accidentally goes into the girls' room. It's actually not that funny. But, very typical Steve Dillon art, which, I don't know. Steve Dillon is a little cold. He's very perfunctory. Definitely gets the job done. But everyone looks alike. All their faces. It's hard to tell them apart. So the end of the night happens, and the character who's been clammed up all night, basically, I think it's the voice of Garth Ennis, he validates their lifestyle. It's good being drunk with your mates. It's a worthwhile endeavor. So they all stumble home, and our narrator, our protagonist, gets home to his girlfriend, and he sleeps on the floor. So I gotta say, like I said, I've got so many Garth Ennis comics in my collection. They're all great reads. I could reread them like right now and be entertained. This is probably the worst Garth Ennis story I've ever read, which isn't saying it's terrible. It's the worst Garth Ennis story I've read. Better than a lot of writers. But this one's pretty lackluster, and I don't care if I ever read it again. Then again, it could be the Steve Dillon art that's turning me off. And then we have this beautiful Glenn Fabry painted back cover of the Bricktop characters. Bricktop. Kind of dumb, but beautifully drawn. That's why Glenn Fabry does so many covers, because he does shit like this. So a lot of companies want him to do their covers. There you go, guys. A16A. I hope you enjoyed looking at it. Pretty good issue. And next time, I guess, well, not next episode, but in like 4 or 5 episodes, we're going to look at 6B. And that'll round up the original Atomica Press run of A1, except they do have a special. So we'll be looking at all that. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at this today, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.